So in this video, we're going to give you the toolkit functions. That's what your textbook refers to them. Some textbooks call them the basic functions or the library of functions. So I'll give you the function and I'll give you the graph. I'm not going to go into other details about the domain and range and is it one-to-one and things like that. We're just going to give you the basics here. So the constant function looks like this. It says f of x is equal to some c, some constant. It could be f of 2. Let's have an example for me to graph. It's going to, let's say it's 2. Say c is 2. This is an example of a constant function. It graphs to be a horizontal line, in this case at 2. Okay? That's the constant function. The identity function, that specifically looks like this. F of x equals x. So your input and output are matching. You have the points 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, and it looks like that diagonal line, slope of 1. Okay, that's the identity function. The absolute value function. So remember, we're just talking about the basic functions here. So it's the absolute value of x. So if you made a table of values, you could put in 0 and 1, 0 and 1 and 2 and 3 like that. And then if you put in -1, you'd get 1, -2, you'd get 2, and then it's going like that. It kind of makes like, well, it's not a very good drawing, but it makes like a V, okay? Now it's really important that you understand the absolute value has a V shape to it. So it's got that point, it's called a cusp, but that's what the absolute value function looks like. A quadratic function, those you may have worked with in the past a little bit more, but the basic one says f of x equals x squared. And then it's going to graph like this. You can make a table of values to get these. I'm not doing the table of values. I think they're in the book. And it makes a parabola. It's kind of a U shape. So that's the difference between the quadratic and the absolute value function. One has a V shape and the other has a U shape. And if you're interested in knowing why that is, you could make a table of values and choose numbers between 0 and 1 and it'll show you. Okay, the cubic function. The cubic function is this, f of x equals x cubed. And again, you can make a table of values. You get 2, 8. And then you get 1, -1, -1, and -2, -8. And so you get kind of this shape here. Now it really should be curved in that between -1 and 1. It's kind of got that curvy hump thing going on. Okay, but that's the cubic function. And there are pictures of these in the textbook as well. The reciprocal function, that one might not be quite as familiar. If you wanted to play around with that, you could. Sorry, trying to hurry. Trying to get these all in one video. There's 9 of these, by the way, 9 of these basic functions. The reciprocal function looks like f of x equals 1 over x. Now, you know that x cannot be 0, and so because of that, there's going to be an asymptote. It's called an asymptote. Oops, right there on the x-axis. Okay, so asymptote. That's that word. And then also 1 over x cannot equal 0, so you're also going to have a horizontal asymptote on the x-axis. Okay? Now, if you choose values and make a table of values, you're going to get, well, it's going to be going like this and this in the first quadrant. And it's going to run toward those asymptotes. In the third quadrant, you're going to get a similar thing. It's running like this, okay? So that's what the reciprocal function looks like. You could make a table of values, like I said, choose some values and draw it out. The reciprocal squared function, again, this one isn't maybe quite as common, but it says f of x equals 1 over x squared. You're still going to have asymptotes because you're not going to let x equal 0. And the whole function can't equal 0. So you're going to have asymptotes on both the x-axis and the y-axis. And then if you made a table of values, you would get a graph that would look, it goes up very steeply and it flattens out very steeply. And then it's a mirror image kind of on the other side. So probably the pictures in the book are a little bit better. My grids are a little small here, but that's what the reciprocal squared function looks like. Okay, the square root function, one of my favorite functions. And you might say, well, why is that your favorite function? It does certain things that we can't see with the other functions, and so I like this one. Again, you can make a table of values. You can put in 0 and 1, and you can put in 4. These are nice little values, and 9. And it looks like this. Now, notice that there's only the arrow going off to the right on this function. The square root function actually has a starting place, okay? And so that is a point there. Oops. That is a point there and not an arrow. So, well, now I drew an arrow to it, but, you know, that's important to note that because you can't have a negative value for x, not on the real number system, okay? So this is a Cartesian coordinate system, and so we have real number values for x and y. Okay, so that is the square root function. That's what it looks like. The cube root function, so this is f of x, oops, get my pen back, f of x equals, and then you would write it as the cubed root of x. Now, you can take the cubed root of a negative number. So again, you could put in some values. You could put in, I don't know why it jumps around like that on me. You could put in 0, you could put in 1, the cubed root of 1 is 1. You could put in 8, the cubed root of 8 is 2. But you can also have these negative values. Let me get that little point out of the way. You could put in negative 1, the cubed root of negative 1 is negative 1. Just my last video, I'm just having all kinds of trouble with here. Negative 1, negative 1. And then you could put in a negative 8. See, if you put in f of negative 8, let me write this one out, you'd have the cubed root of negative 8. You can take the cubed root of a negative number, you'd get negative 2. So you'd have an input of negative 8 and an output, this would be the input, taking a little time on this one, and an output, output, and that's the ordered pair negative 8, negative 2. So you go to negative 8, negative 2, and you get that point there. And that's what we're doing when we, give you these graphs. We've made a table of values somewhere, and this is how they graph. And so you get kind of that snake shape, but like that, kind of laying down on its side or something. Okay, those are the basic functions. And so you want to be familiar with the basic functions because when they come up, then you'll know, oh, that's what that one looks like, that's what that one looks like. Okay, so good luck. Those were the videos for section 1.